Hello everybody, welcome to The Lit Show, where we discuss everything lit related. I'm your host, Aiden Fecto. Next to me is my co-host, Henry Burns. Let's get ready to roll.
What's up, everybody? Guest starring on the show today is Owen Olsen, who has starred in many prestigious movies such as Fahrenheit 451, VeggieTales, Cars 3, and the Emoji Movie. He is a literary genius.
How's it going, everybody?
And lastly, we have Anand Olstad among us, who himself is a Fahrenheit 451 enthusiast. Isn't that right, Anand?
Yes, it is. I've probably read the book 4 times over, and trust me, it gets better every time. There are so many hidden elements embedded into the book that can be easily missed.
And I mean, just to make sure, Owen, you have read the book, right?
I have. I was considering winging it before this podcast, but I decided to give it a read, and I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of famous works of literature have a tendency to be anticlimactic and not as great as anticipated.
I completely agree. Even as a book enthusiast myself, I encounter this problem.
Alright, to begin the discussion, Henry Burns is going to be giving us a summary of Fahrenheit 451.
Alright, Guy Montag, the main character, is a fireman who, instead of putting out fires, burns books. In the beginning of the book, he meets a girl named Clarice, who is seemingly charming, but has an oddity about her. After Clarice and Guy Montag become acquainted, Clarice mysteriously disappears. As the story continues, Montag becomes increasingly paranoid about society and his role as a fireman. After he steals books from a house he was supposed to burn, he discovers the hindrance of keeping literature banned. His boss, Beatty, who acts as the main antagonist, becomes paranoid of Montag's fondness of books. Eventually, he burns down Montag's house after discovering that Montag held books, to which Montag responds by killing him and running away from authority. They don't catch him, and he manages to escape into the wilderness, the unknown.
Alright, thanks Henry. And now we're going to move it over to Anand, who's going to kick off our discussion.
Okay, so primarily I want to talk about the character of Clarice and how she impacts the book. I'm going to read a quote from Clarice on page 27, and we're going to talk about its significance. It's a lot of funnels and a lot of water poured down the spout and out the bottom, and them telling us it's wine when it's not. I think this quote is a direct reflection of the society that encompasses Fahrenheit 451, and how they are negligent to the governing forces' blatant lies. This plot, or this theme, also arises in the book The Giver, which we read in 7th grade. You may not remember it. But it was about a character, or the protagonist, who discovers the negligence of everyone around him and how they lack knowledge, their society lacks knowledge.
Yeah, and in that book, The Giver, the memories that the main character would receive are kind of like the novels that are being burned in this book, where that the government in Fahrenheit 451 is trying to take away that knowledge or those memories from the people. And in The Giver, the main character is receiving those so that he can pass them on in a society that is trying to restrict those memories from everyone else.
The one difference between the two protagonists is that Guy Montag we don't know about it, but he hasn't yet revealed the knowledge that he received from the books to the general population. However, in The Giver, the protagonist at the end of the book leaves the borders of where he previously lived, which releases all of the memories to the general population.
In a way, though, Montag kind of does the same thing, because he does escape the society and finds another society where like
he meets up with those people who also were like on a quest for knowledge.
Exactly. And I think like in that sense, like they can then share each other's knowledge, and then he can gain a deeper understanding of this literature.
Yeah, the people that he meets up with, they don't actually have the books, but they have them all memorized, and you can just ask them to recite a book and they'll do it for you.
So in the future, how do you think having these books memorized is going to affect them? Like, do you think they're going to do anything with this knowledge that they have?
Well, I mean, if you...
they're obviously probably going to try and share with as many people as they can, just sort of help everybody not, like, be restricted by the government, how, like, they've sort of burned all the books, maybe help different people can learn a ton of new information.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're going to try to go out and just really give away as much information as they know as possible, because it's such a dangerous thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's like really actually kind of deadly.
Yeah, but like I feel like their mission almost is to start a new society where everyone will have the baseline of understanding and baseline of knowledge. And like, I mean, you think about like I mean, it's on a whole different level. We think about our English class today, like, we read those books that most of us have never read before, and, like, you gain a new sense of knowledge, and, like, you're able to hold conversations with other people who have also read the book, and, like, hold an intellectual conversation rather than a surface level conversation, which happens in the society that Montag previously was living in.
But even if they were trying to change society, I think it would be a very slow process. And even in that case, I don't think it's very practical, because if you were trying to change this whole society's ideals and what they've been told since birth, it'd be a very slow and tedious process that inevitably I don't think would work. What would you guys think about that?
I mean, I agree. I think partly also because people are scared. They don't want to risk anything. I mean, they've been living, as you said, they've been growing up like that, living that life their whole life. And if the government is trying to prohibit that, then they're probably going to not want to ease into that new society that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to bring it back to The Giver for a quick second, like, I remember that the protagonist would, after receiving some of the memories, like, he would be really scared of what he saw. And I think that's what a lot of people in Fahrenheit 4, the society in Fahrenheit 451 fear, like Mildred, like they fear what they don't know, like they fear the unknown. To them, I guess, like, their ignorance is bliss, to reference an essential question, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the books are definitely the unknown, and just knowledge in general is really unknown in Fahrenheit 451.
It's definitely, yeah, they're definitely both motifs in both books. So going back to that question that Henry just posed, like, who do you think is a bystander in both books? Who are the characters who weren't biased in either way and they were just there?
I mean, I'm not sure about the bystanders in The Giver, but I think for sure a bystander in Fahrenheit 451 is Faber, because he sees the issue and he knows that's a problem, but he's too scared to act upon it, and he's too scared to do anything about it, and he ends up just living a life of, like, regret and guilt.
He's still, like, sort of controlled by the government. Like, he has a similar mission. Like, he keeps all those books in his house, and he wants to go on, like, that quest for knowledge. He's just too scared to actually go through with it. So he's kind of, Guy Montag is, like, the complete sort of opposite. How he also is on that quest for knowledge, but he's actually willing to make that jump.
Alright, now going back to Anand's original quote, I'm going to propose the question, is Clarice a mentor to Montag?
I think that Ray Bradbury took an interesting approach to writing Clarice's character. Yes, she did provoke some irrational thought within Montag, but she wasn't there long enough to have a lasting effect on his character. And I think more so, rather than her actions affecting Guy Montag, I think it was more her death that made him think irrationally and made him question society and what was wrong with it. What do you guys think about that?
I think that the way Ray Bradbury took the approach of Clarice was to make the reader think at first that Clarice was not a mentor because of the age difference.
I agree.
And usually you don't think of someone younger than you to be a mentor to you. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, this brings up the problem we have nowadays. It isn't as significant as racism or other isms, but I think ageism itself is a problem within society.
Anand, can you just clarify what you mean by ageism?
Yeah, so I think there's a preconceived notion that adolescents aren't nearly as capable as adults are. Like, suffrage is obtained at age 18, yet I would argue for myself that I'm able to make good decisions about our government's politics. What do you think about ageism? Like, do you think that many other kids our age are able to make good decisions for themselves?
I think there's a good amount of 16-year-old kids that I know that have no idea what they're doing and, like, couldn't make a decision at all.
A rational decision.
Yeah, but, yeah, exactly, like a well-informed decision. But I also know many 18-year-old plus people in the world can't make a rational decision, but they still are allowed to vote. So I think oftentimes we think just because someone's younger than we are that they're less capable or less intelligent than us. But in reality, sometimes the younger generations have more ideas and can spark change better than the older generations because they're too concerned with being right all the time, where the younger generations are more likely to try new things out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think that intelligence and your insightfulness should solely be based on age, rather than it should be based on solely your mental capacity and, like, how well you can think outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly a point to be made for with age comes wisdom, but also like there are just some people who are old and they just become a rock or like a shell of who they used to be, and they don't have the same knowledge that someone who's 18 and is starting college or something would have.
So how do you think, did you like Ray Bradbury's choice about making the mentor in this book, in this case Clarice, younger than Guy Montag? How do you guys feel about that?
I thought it was a great decision by Ray Bradbury, because at first you're reading this and you're like, why would Montag listen to someone younger than him? She doesn't know anything. But then you keep reading and you're like, wow, Clarice really affected Montag's life.
And she was completely correct in some aspects.
Yes.
Do you wish that other authors would make their mentors younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we progress in society, more and more authors are starting to do this, because I think as the generation above us grows up, they realize that the generation below them can make change, so they decide that the mentors or role models in their books should be younger, and or at least just so that they can spark change for the generations to come.
Ironically, however, Ray Bradbury did include an older mentor, Professor Faber.
Professor Faber's character was definitely controversial. There was an argument for him being a coward throughout the novel, and there was definitely an argument for him being a mentor and a necessary step to Guy Montag's progression.
I mean, I think I'd have to argue he's just more of a coward, because as here on page 87, he tells Montag after he puts the transmitter in his ear, he says, "Montag, I can sit comfortably home, warming my frightened bones, and hear and analyze the fireman's world, find its weaknesses without danger. I'm the queen bee, safe in the hive." Yeah, I think it just shows how scared he is of what Montag's actually doing. Like, he could never do it himself, so he just sits at home and tries to guide other people in doing it, which could be seen as helpful or beneficial, but in reality, I think in order for him to actually make a change, he should go out on his own and join Montag.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the question, like a question that maybe your parents even asked you. Are you a leader or are you a follower? I think Faber is definitely a follower here. Yes, he has an activist spirit, but he doesn't actually act upon any of his aspirations. He needs a leader like Guy Montag to provoke him to do things that are irrational and things that make him go out of his comfort zone.
I mean, you just said Montag was a leader, but I think it's almost that Montag is a follower of a leader, but it's because I think Clarice was the original leader, and she almost trained Montag to be her next in line, and Montag is now the leader to Faber and all the other people who want to start the revolution.
All right, who was better to Montag, Clarice or Faber?
As a mentor, I think Faber was way better. He had more of a prolonged effect on Guy Montag's successfulness, and I think that's also part due to just Clarice straight up dying. That wasn't necessarily her fault, but she didn't have much of a lasting effect on him. Yes, she did provoke irrational thought. She did make him rebel against society's ideals, but in the end, she didn't actually have much of an effect on how his successfulness, as I said.
I don't know. I mean, I think you can't discount the fact that she sparked his thought process on it, because I think there's that little part in Montag's brain that always thought that reading was a little reading should be included in society, or he was curious about what the books actually entailed, but and Clarice flipped the switch in his brain and started his whole revolution, and I don't think Faber wouldn't even come into play if it wasn't for Clarice.
So that raises the question, do you think that Montag was the right protagonist for this book? Do you think that he was the perfect character to play the role of the protagonist?
I don't think Guy Montag was the perfect protagonist, but I think there was definitely some pros to him being the main character.
Yeah, I think Guy Montag being the protagonist, the reason Ray Bradbury did that is because he wanted to say that all of us have an inner Montag. All of us can can go from being ignorant to knowledgeable and to more sophisticated.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can kind of see that in ourselves. I mean, I know personally, say 5 years ago, I didn't think at all about climate change, global warming. I didn't think about how I could make a difference for it. Sometimes I would just I might have thrown away a piece of plastic or paper or something and not even thought twice about it. But now when I go to make the choice between recycling something or throwing it away, like I'm very conscious of if it can be recycled or composted or something, so that I don't leave a negative impact on the environment.
And coincidentally, Henry, today marks the day of Relay for Life. I remember as of 3 years ago, I didn't really acknowledge cancer as such a significant problem in the world. But now, all four of us included, Aiden, Henry, Owen, and I, we're all very proactive with raising money for cancer research.
And that right there, you guys, is really Ray Bradbury's biggest message he's trying to send in the novel. That we can all make change. We can all be activists. And you know what that means. It's time for our exclusive interview. Today, we are joined by prestige actor Owen Olsen.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. First off, we're going to talk about your role in Fahrenheit 451. Did you enjoy your role?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that role. It was really fun and at the same time challenging to work with different aspects from the book to the movie. It was really fun being the lead, as Guy Montag was such an inspirational character in the way he affected society and strived for change, and I did my best job to try and fit that mold.
What problems did you have with acting the role out?
The way the characters were set up and sort of like the setting of the movie was pretty difficult. Like Clarice was sort of completely different in the movie as she was in the book, and the setting was way farther ahead in the future. Like it was like holograms and there was like assistant robots. It was just kind of challenging to sort of work with that after reading the book and then dealing with that.
What moments from the book sparked the most creativity for the director?
As I worked with him, he thought the futuristic approach was a great creative twist, as the book already takes place in the future, so he kind of just made it like way farther into the future and added some different elements to it. And a lot of the scenes with fire in the movie, he dramatized to make it a more appealing movie, which I thought was a great decision.
I would disagree, actually, because you guys got like a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Sheesh!
Yeah. So I don't think your director's creative approach was very creative at all, actually.
Shots fired.
That's tough.
And that marks the end of our exclusive interview with profound actor Owen Olsen.
All right, well, that brings our show to a conclusion for today. Special thanks to Anand Olstad and Owen Olsen for coming down here to join us.
And make sure to tune in next Saturday on The Lit Show. Remember, folks, stay lit.